China, China, China. If you clicked on this video, you're probably pretty friendly with AI, and if you're close to the AI industry, you definitely know about Chinese models. If you know Chinese models, you're definitely familiar with DeepSeek, and if you're familiar with DeepSeek, you also know how ridiculously cheap it is. If you don't, they're like cheap, we're talking 80% cheaper with GPT 5.4 level performance. But do you know the Chinese are accessing the literal latest GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.7 models for less than $1? Well, that's exactly what's happening. 100 million tokens for $1. There's an old saying from ancient Greece, necessity is the mother of invention, but the Chinese version seems to have a sequel, or maybe ours is missing a chapter, because they didn't stop at finding a solution to the problem, they went way beyond it. For a long time, US AI labs have been restricting or literally blocking their models from any Chinese access, and ironically, so has the Chinese government. So technically, Anthropic's Claude doesn't exist there. For example, to access Anthropic Claude at a minimum, you need a foreign non-Chinese phone number. Not only that, but you also need overseas credit cards and matching billing addresses. And that's still not enough for them. Recently, Anthropic started asking for government-issued photo ID and a live selfie for select users to verify their identity, making them the first in the AI industry to do so. So even if Chinese users can fake phone numbers and addresses, they'll theoretically have a hard time faking live selfies matched against a physical government document. But you can't blame Anthropic for that either. Earlier this year, in April, they said they found 20,000 fraudulent accounts created just from one proxy, and they blamed Chinese labs for a coordinated distillation attack to train their own models. Because of that, they made accessing Claude models an extremely heavy process, from requiring specific phone numbers and credit cards to matching billing addresses, and even blocking access to any company owned more than 50% by Chinese interests, directly or indirectly, regardless of where it is. But the fun part is, the Chinese not only found a way to access these models, but also to use them for less than 10% of the price. The question is how? Like, how could they bypass all these restrictions and then use them for less than a penny? Well, I'd say they have more experience working around restrictions than anyone else, I guess. Okay, so the real case is there's a new system or economy called a transfer station, or this in Chinese. What it does is it sits between the developer and Anthropic's infrastructure, and then when the user sends requests, it forwards them as if they originated from the transfer station's location and passes the response back. Basically, it's an API proxy. And in community repositories, major transfer stations are listed and ranked as based on real-time pricing and uptime. If we look at these stations, they look the same as other AI API services like OpenRouter, except they're illegal, and so is the way they work behind the scenes. Now, this is the overview. When we take the cover off, you can clearly see how that service becomes possible. This whole operation hinges on two factors. One is breaking the restrictions, and the second is providing it for almost free. So, the so-called transfer station doesn't work by itself. It has a massive supply chain behind it to pull this off. First is the account creation process. In this section, there are multiple different players. At the beginning, there are agents who provide foreign phone numbers that are needed to pass sign-up checks. Next, there are account manufacturers who bulk register Anthropic accounts on a massive scale, or even acquire them in some cases. And at the more technical end, there are reverse engineers who analyze Anthropic's client code to find authentication shortcuts or detect when detection logic has changed. So with this, they manage to create the accounts successfully. And I think that's why Singapore, with a population smaller than that of New York City, is surprisingly the #1 global per capita user of Anthropic's Claude just last month, because these systems route through these locations in massive numbers. But this is not enough. Yeah, they create the account using the phone number they get from wherever, while dodging any new security moves from the system, but Anthropic says more. To access the top models, you need to pass Anthropic's KYC. This includes providing a government-issued photo ID and taking a live selfie, which the Chinese can't do it for a natural reason. Because of their natural location. So they have to figure out a workaround for this too, and they came up with two solutions. As they say, diamond cuts diamond. The first solution, it's AI. They use highly realistic generated fake IDs to bypass identity checks, and deepfake tools to create digital clones that successfully pass biometric verification remotely. But if that method doesn't work and the system flags the fake ID, they move on to the second solution, getting physical. The second method is, instead of any virtual cloning or any nerdy shit, they actually go to third world countries to recruit real individuals willing to complete in-person verification. Agents travel to lower income regions like Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. It may look extreme, but we've already seen this exact hustle with the WorldCoin black market, where brokers in places like Cambodia and Kenya harvested real people's iris scans and sold them online for under $30 just to bypass security. Even if you ignore the rumors, they're literally telling us exactly how they do it.
Anthropic has started implementing identity verification. You need a passport plus a selfie to use certain features. This is where the advantage of
AI transfer stations from the crypto circle comes in. We're back to the stage of being our most familiar KYC manufacturers.
braving the risk of Ebola in Africa to find locals to help with face scan verification and selling IDs. Buying a smiling teeth photo from a local for $5 and selling it for
$100 to a ByteDance programmer at Zhaichun Road in Beijing.
Other circles can't handle this kind of hardship,
but we KYC manufacturers in the crypto circle can.
In the past, I didn't understand how different paths lead to the same end.
But now I finally get it. On the coast of Africa, with a sack of cash
and two guys with a K-47 standing behind him on a yacht,
a KYC manufacturer
is racking his brains to pass identity verification for you.
In a Shenzhen office building, wearing black-rimmed glasses and flip-flops, holding a Luckin coffee,
a manufacturer specializing in SEO and community marketing for transfer stations
is racking his brains to create a great service package for you. At an Italian airport,
constantly stealing bags, opening them to pick out MacBooks and credit cards,
a credit card manufacturer who sells stolen black credit card info to transfer stations is racking his brains to save you money.
These three are like stand users in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They are destined to be drawn to one another.
Thank you to this era, and thank you to all the arbitrageurs for allowing us to use
cheap Claude code.
So after all this blood and sacrifice, these guys are just equal to other API providers, at best. They're just able to break the restrictions and access models which all providers do in a peaceful and civil way daily. So what? That's not enough. We need to make it free, or at least insanely cheap. And that's where they came up with a new solution again, a technique they call the one fish, three meals strategy. Basically, it means squeezing one account in 3 different ways to extract maximum profit out of it. So the first meal is simple, access markup. These guys stack together all kinds of loopholes and cheap sources. Some bulk create additional Anthropic accounts just to farm the free credits. Others resell unused quota from abandoned accounts. Some abuse educational or corporate discounts. And then there's what they call API maxing, where one expensive Claude Max subscription gets split between multiple users at the same time, stretching one account way beyond what it was meant for. And according to reports, some accounts may even come from stolen or fraudulent credit cards, which means the operators basically get access for almost zero cost. Now, the second meal is where things get sketchy. Because everything goes through their proxy servers, users can't actually verify what model they're talking to. You think you selected Claude Opus, but behind the scenes, it's a completely different story. They might silently downgrade you to Sonnet, Haiku, or even entirely different Chinese models like Qwen or GLM, while still charging you for the premium model. And unless you're doing complex tasks, most users won't even notice. The only sign is that the AI suddenly feels dumber. And even before this new station system came out, researchers from Germany actually tested several API proxies and found widespread model swapping. One proxy selling access to Gemini 2.5 achieved only 37% on a medical benchmark, a staggering drop from the 83% performance of the official API, meaning yes, model swapping is very real. But it doesn't stop there. There's another trick too, inflating token usage. Some proxies constantly rotate accounts, which destroys context caching and forces the AI to repeatedly process old context again and again. This burns more tokens, increases usage, and quietly makes more money for the proxy operator. But the strategy that actually justifies the cheap access is meal number 3. Here, you are the real product. As we know, every single thing you send through these proxies, prompts, responses, coding sessions, tool calls, reasoning chains, all of it passes through their servers. And for coding models especially, that data is insanely valuable. It contains real engineering decisions, debugging workflows, successful outputs, and long reasoning traces from frontier AI systems like Claude Opus. In the AI age, data is more valuable than gold. That means you are actually mining gold for them. The operators will take those conversations and turn them into training data to sell to other AI labs. So it's probably no coincidence that Chinese AI models like Kimi perform suspiciously like Claude. So, the first two meals are useful for providing cheaper tokens, cheaper than Anthropic officially charges. But to really make prices ridiculously low, at 10% or even 5% of the original price, you need to eat the third meal. So by combining all these techniques, you finally get the latest Claude models for 90% off 90% of the time, while the other 10% is what the Chinese call downgraded intelligence. So, if you want to try it for yourself, I highly advise using the official and legal API. Is there a chance these models are literally just Chinese models in disguise? Maybe. But massive benchmark tests and internal research show they are actually legit top-tier Anthropic and OpenAI models. It could also be that Chinese labs are monetizing their backdoor access, charging users to subsidize the very distillation that trains their models. But the bottom line is this model access is real, and a ton of developers are using them regardless of the security concerns. Anyway, yeah, that was it for today. This is my new YouTube channel where I cover AI news as it happens. Please subscribe and join the fam for quick updates. I will catch you in the next one. See ya.